Okay, we are so excited to welcome this next person to Hysteria. We are welcoming Candace Valenzuela today. Candace is running to represent Texas's 24th district, a seat Republicans have held for 15 years. She entered her primary race as an outsider, but now is being talked up as one of the Democrats' rising stars, which must be a cool thing to hear about yourself. She's been endorsed by friends of Hysteria, such as Representative Ayanna Pressley and Senator Elizabeth Warren, and if elected, she will be the first ever Black Latina in Congress. Candace, welcome to Hysteria.
Erin, it is so awesome to be here. Thank you.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with you and your campaign, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run?
In a nutshell, I'm running for Congress because the opportunities that helped me go from being homeless as a kid, living in a kiddie pool outside of a gas station with my brother and mother, to being the first in my family to go to college, to being the first woman of color on my North Texas school board, have been under attack by this administration. And that's an understatement, given how crazy things have been since we've started this process. And what I know is that if we want the kind of representation that's responsive to a lot of the struggles that families are facing, especially right now, we need to start sending more people to the halls of Congress. We need to start sending more people at all levels of government who understand families, who understand their struggles, and want to deal with those urgencies as they are.
Texas is notoriously a low turnout state, but we've already seen a record number of early voting in the state. Texas feels in play this election cycle in a way that it hasn't in previous election years. And if elected, you would, as Erin said, be the first Afro-Latina woman in Congress. Has the energy in Texas changed since the Trump election in 2016?
It has shifted pretty significantly, and it feels like something came undone a little bit with the Beto O'Rourke campaign and the wave of folks across the state fighting as hard as possible to have better representation. So we saw a lot of folks making headway in races we didn't expect to see headway. Will Hurd was a very well-liked member of Congress, and Gina Ortiz-Jones scared him into retirement. We're seeing Mike Siegel getting as close as he could against Mike McCall, and now it looks like he's finally going to overtake him in 2020. Folks are fed up. The kinds of folks who thought that maybe Trump was kidding when they voted for him are now seeing him for who he is and what he stands for and what that means for a republic. And so we're seeing record turnout. I have so many phone calls now with voters. I've voted straight ticket Republican my entire life, and now I'm voting for all of the Democrats. Give me all of the Democrats. I'm voting for the Democrats right now. It's a strange world to be in, but it is the world we're in.
That's so interesting because it's one of those things I think that national outlets aren't really in touch with. Well, I mean, why would they be? They're located on the coast. It's cool to hear people who are close to changes like what's happening in Texas. So earlier in this episode, we spoke to Elizabeth Warren about why and how teachers make great politicians. So what about your experience as a teacher has given you access to like an awareness of what people need? And like, what are your educational priorities if you were a member of Congress?
Well, one, when you have the opportunity to have conversations with 5-year-olds, with 6-year-olds, with 15-year-olds, you start to understand what they're thinking about the world and what plans they have for themselves. And I know that sounds kind of odd, but you start to learn how to meet people where they are. And I am really grateful for those experiences. I had the opportunity to teach kids who are coming from a lot of different socioeconomic backgrounds, having been from one really difficult one myself, and seeing the differences in great students, but with different access to opportunities has given me a sort of foundational look at what our economy and our democracy can look like when you remove some of those barriers to entry. And it informs so much of the policy that I'm trying to push forth. I mean, everything from campaign finance reform to making sure that pre-K is universal in this country because of the high return on investment for families and for children. Thinking about what it means to build a republic from the ground up is the perspective I think that teaching has given me. And I am just so excited about the wave of teachers, the wave of educators that has come up during this crisis in our democracy, because these are the kinds of folks that I've seen be the helpers, be the people who take over difficult situations and make them better for folks. We are seeing a new wave, not just of Democrats or progressivism, but we're seeing a new wave of compassion. And that's what we need right now, compassion.
You've in part been supported by Vote Mama PAC, a PAC that supports mothers with young children running for office. And to be honest, it sort of exploded my brain to learn that there are only 25 congresswomen with young school-age children. Why is having more moms in Congress vital to the health of our democracy?
When we're talking about some of the challenges that moms are facing right now, we need to talk about the increasing cost of childcare. Some parents are paying as much as their rent or their mortgage in order to keep their kids taken care of while they're trying to work. Some parents have pulled themselves out of the job market altogether in order to take care of their kids. And that is absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. But there are quite a few folks who just don't have a choice. And without that affordable childcare, it hurts us all economically as we do lose people. It hurts those kids. Sometimes they may end up in unlicensed daycares, and those places aren't all the greatest places for kids to end up. My mom was single. She had my brother and I, and we were in a lot of different types of childcare situations. And just knowing how much my mother had to give up in order to make sure that we were taken care of, I can imagine, or I can actually picture pretty well what these families are going through to make ends meet. And we don't have that kind of compassion, again, in the halls of Congress. We have this very slick, very hardworking DC that has a lot of the kids neatly removed from the equation, either because they can't afford the high-priced nannies, or they can't afford the high-priced childcare, or they just don't have kids at all. And again, that is fantastic if that is your choice. But for the vast majority of Americans who need policies with their kinds of families in mind, it's not enough. We need to see a bunch of different types of representation, and moms need to be among them.
Candace, what excites you most about potentially being elected to represent Texas's 24th district? And how can our listeners who might not live in your district but want to support you, how can they pitch in the last vital days of the campaign?
What really excites me about being able to represent the folks in Texas 24 is just the ability to bring my family's experiences to make better policies for other families, so that the families that I saw in my school district who were struggling to make ends meet, who were struggling to put food on the table, maybe they'll never know who I am. Maybe they'll never think of me at all, but they'll have that much more ease getting access to a job with a living wage. Maybe they'll walk outside and be able to breathe cleaner air, or have potable water, or not have to worry about going to the grocery store and buying meat that's bad, because we're starting to lose so many regulations in our meat packing industry. I mean, good governance starts to become invisible. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that excites me the most. I want my work in politics to be so remarkably unremarkable, so that families can just live and breathe the way that they need to.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was really great to hear from you, and good luck in the remainder of the campaign. We'll be pulling for you. Yeah, we're pulling for you.
Before I go, I needed to let you know what I'm up against really quickly.
Sure.
The Republicans have dumped something like $6.5 million into my TV market against me in favor of my opponent, who you might remember. She was the mayor of Irving, who cheered on the police department for keeping a young boy in police custody for bringing a clock to school while being Muslim. So if you remember that slight 14-year-old kid, Ahmed Mohammed, otherwise known as Clock Boy, this was my district. This is my opponent. My opponent endorsed Trump. Trump has endorsed her back. And there are communities in my district who are scared. So if anybody can help out by volunteering or by pitching in to help us to keep going, please go to my website, C as in Charlie, V as in Victor, the number 4C.com, CV4C.com, and sign up.
Well, they must be pretty afraid of you if they're pouring that much money into running against you. Listeners, if you can spare some time, if you can spare a couple bucks, definitely check that out. Thank you, Candace Valenzuela. We really hope you win.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Honored to be here.